So kind of a thing that we've seen a lot with our clients recently is they're coming in and saying, hey, I want to own this market, whether that be Atlanta, Charlotte, whatever. And they're like, find me multiple brands that I can build because I've already got an infrastructure in place. They may own a construction company or something like that. They're going to go into insulation, whatever. So it's kind of a new thing for us, but we've done it a lot recently. So Mike, touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, I coach a lot of my clients on, scale, right? We always talk about scale is the only way to wealth. Well, I think the typical model, scaling geographically and going, okay, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it 15 times. Mm-hmm. And I learned actually the hard way, right? Early in my career, I owned multiple territories for a franchise, and I got out of my depth and I got out of my circle of influence, really, is what happened. And so sometimes, even if you're doing the same business, if you get too far away, you can't overlap team, you can't overlap marketing spend, customer base, any of that kind of stuff. So sometimes what it's better is being your own partner, going, okay, I own this market. When people think gutters or insulation or whatever, they think of us. Okay, we have those customers, we have those relationships. What are other ways to monetize? So a lot of these big guys that I'm working with or private equity firms are coming in and going, okay, I got a really good customer base, or I got a solid model. How do I bolt it on, right? There's less risk. You know that market. You have those relationships in the market. I think you think of it a little bit more of like a product rather than another business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right? True. That's a good
talk
point.
Talk about your 9-to-5ers, right? I worked in the corporate world for 20 years and I traveled all over the country, and people think that's really cool, but it's not. And what you found specifically over the COVID months is that individuals just like me were staying at home and they enjoyed that time with their family. Time matters. And so what I found, they were looking at franchise opportunities, but they didn't want to go all over the country. They wanted to stay in their backyard. Why? Because they would be at home every night with their family for dinner. They get to go to their kids' sporting events. All those things matter. So when they look at growing their brand presence, they're looking in their backyard and they're looking at multiple brands. And to kind of piggyback off that, one of the biggest things that I see now are individuals that are in their 40s and 50s, and they do not want to do what they're doing for the next 10 years. Historically, we've always been told, well, if you work hard enough and you save enough in your 401k, that, hey, when you're 65 years old, you can retire. Let's flip that on its side. Now we're in this world where people are referring to it as the great resignation. And individuals are saying, hey, I want to get out of what I'm doing today, and I want to buy 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 different franchise brands over the next 10 years. And yeah, I may not quote unquote retire in that time frame, but I'm going to have individuals running these brands for me, and I'm going to be able to spend a lot more time with my family, grow my wealth in that way, and be much better for it.
And I think to expand on that, we know that the business owner loves that, right? We know the business owner loves being able to stay close to home. The business owner loves to have more flexibility and be in their backyard. That trickles down to every single family in that chain.
Yep.
Right? That's the biggest thing about franchises is you're building it for your family and also the family of the people that work for you, knowing that they don't have to travel between 15 different locations and they have room to move up, right? In one of my businesses, unless my main guy gets hit by a bus tomorrow, no matter how good you do, you can't move up. I don't need 6 managers for one business and no employees. So by having multiple brands that marriage really well, that guy that is crushing it for you, he can now run a new branch and have that upward mobility. You're going to retain employees better and attract better people.
Constantly giving back to your community, right? You don't get an opportunity to do that all that often. And now you're doing it in multiple ways. You're employing multiple people in your backyard. It's such a big deal right now.
Huge deal right now. And like I've seen that over and over again where this reinvestment into the community is a big deal. I mean, if you have a franchise, you're immediately having 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 employees, you multiply it by 4 or 5 brands, you're now affecting 50, 60, 70, maybe 100 people in your community. That's a big deal and a big impact.
Yeah, versus you're the small fish in 10 different ponds. You can be the big fish in one pond, right? You can get the best employees, you can pay the most, you can give the most back. You can have true impact in a big way versus being a little piece of a bunch of communities that you're never really going to be able to get to mass and affect.
The other side of this too is the customer, right? So we talked about convenience and how nice that is, but what about the customer? What if you have the ability to go in and your irrigation, maybe one of our irrigation brands, and all of a sudden you realize, hey, mosquitoes are a problem. You know, the ability for that customer to you as an owner to cross-sell, but it's convenient for that customer as well.
Yeah, versus they already know that guy that's coming out, right? It's probably the same technician in a different hat, right? And he's coming out, they know him, he can service so much instead of, well, putting it back on the customer. Hey, this is a problem. See ya. Go fix it yourself.
Well, think about the seasonality of some of these. You can do the mosquitoes, or you can do get into spraying for mosquitoes or doing irrigation during those summer months. Then you flip that over and now you own another franchise that does insulation in the winter months. So there's so many opportunities to overlap these seasonally that make it a huge advantage for a franchise.
And that overlap, it cuts down on expenses, right? Your customer acquisition, cut into a fourth.
We've seen that too. The margins are better with people who do this. We've seen it before.
Yeah, because they already have that customer and they're going, okay, I can reservice you this way. This one's a high ticket one, right? We have some that if you do, spray foam insulation correctly, it's going to outlive all three of us, right? You're not going to service that customer again, but you're already a trusted brand in that household that you can step in and do other things that are more reoccurring, but doesn't have maybe as much of a margin or something, but you don't have to acquire that customer again. It's huge. And you don't have to have more employees, right? A lot of times when we're first getting up and rolling, sometimes we don't have enough work to make that guy full time. Well, then we're going to lose him to, a different opportunity or something like that. If I can go, okay, well, I got 10 hours worth of work in this brand and I got 10 hours worth of work in this brand, I can retain that guy and build a future with him while my business is ramping up.
Yeah, I like that. The ironic thing about this is no other time in history could you do this, because the franchise model ultimately is saying, how do you go from a gutter to mosquito to whatever company? But these systems are so locked down and perfect, it's easy to bolt them on, because of the technology, because all the advances in the franchise world, it's a big deal, so that's something to think about as well. This is the first time that people are probably thinking about this.
Well, a lot of it is because, most people don't go in with a coach, right? They go in and a friend of a friend owns a whatever company. And he goes, he does really well, you should buy one. Okay. And then you're in an echo chamber of just hearing, I'm in the right brand, this is growing great, the way to scale is to buy more, right? That's what the franchisor is going to say. And a lot of times that's the right move. But that franchisor is not going to come to you. And they want you to succeed, right? But they're not going to come to you and go, have you ever thought of buying a different business?
Yeah, sure.
Right? That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
We're a third party like us. We're not incentivized one brand over another. Yeah. Our job is to play that Tetris and understand, okay, we can piece these two together and this one there. But you don't have someone usually externally that doesn't care if you get this one or that one and isn't incentivized for you to get 10 more in this. And we play that outside coach for you and kind of just do that.
And ultimately that's the risk element, right? Because we're helping them mitigate risk. The other side of this too for mitigating risk is recession, maybe, off playing the fact that you've got one that's maybe open to recession, one that's not. It balances out your portfolio, which is part of the service we provide, right? We analyze your portfolio, say, hey, this is probably a good option for you. Let's think about this one maybe a year or 2 years. This doesn't have to be immediate, right? You don't have to buy 2 or 3 brands out of the gate. This is consecutive. We can help you map that out and really help you, kind of paint your picture for your legacy.
Yeah, that is one of the best values that we bring as advisors, is we're able to map out the next 5 to 10 years as new brands hit our portfolio. We do a lot of the betting on the back end. They're able to come in right away, start the brand that they love and they fall in love with and move forward. But then 2 years down the road, we have a new brand that we know aligns with them and we're right back connected with them. So we don't go away after they buy a franchise. We stay connected with them through the life of their franchise, which I think is a big value.
Well, and I think of that is, in this industry, you see a lot of, honestly, turn and burn. I just got to talk to enough people, then eventually somebody's going to get into it. We're probably the only ones that we are constantly turning people away and going, in order for me to do well for somebody, I have to be limited, right? I only work with 30 people at a time, and that's for their benefit. You know, I can only coach and know the back end, keep my eyes open for the next thing for them, and understand here and be there when they're having those late nights of stressing out. We can only do that for the people that we want to do that. You know, and we talk about all these brands, and they have a lot of their stuff dialed in, but all of them have their own features, right? Just like we do, right? You're a marketing guy, I'm an operations guy, you're a sales guy, right? Like we all have those things. So if you take a brand that is phenomenal at the customer acquisition piece, they're probably not as great at something else, right? Then you take another brand that services the same customer, and honestly, their customer acquisition isn't great. It doesn't have to be. You're leveraging the customer base from the other piece. So understanding where the weaknesses are on one can also be the strengths on another, and really pair those in.
So the other side of this, right? Like this isn't always the best move. Let's just get that out there too. Like we're not advocating this is the best move. And sometimes franchisors don't love the idea of having multiple brands. Now, when we have our discussions with our franchisors, we do bring that up. But ultimately, this is kind of a new concept to an extent. But there is a lot of value. Like we pointed out, there's a lot of value there. But this is probably a minority versus a majority scenario. But in a perfect situation, it's a better scenario.
I think the biggest thing is who the client is, right? You got to kind of look internally and know who you are as an operator, right? My guys that do this diversification play very well, they're not operators. They are literally coming to me most time going, I have this customer base, I have this operator in place, loves to do this, hates to do this, lives here, this is what he does, right? They're not going, hey Mike, add it to me, right? They're coming with a team. So I think that's the biggest thing, is knowing realistically, right, why you're buying a business, why you're not working 9 to 5, is probably because you don't want to work 120 hours. So doing multiple brands, if you're doing it alone, not a good fit. Make sure you come on a team sport.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you look at it like this. We're just like your financial advisor, right? You're going to give me your money to do this for you, but I'm going to see you every year, right? So we're not going away. So if you buy your first franchise and you want to come back and look at another one, we're going to reach out to you when we find that right fit based on what you've told us, because we're talking to you regularly and making sure that your needs are met.
Yeah, sometimes there's a lot of value in, being that master of one, right? I spent 10 years being a franchisee of one brand. Now I know how they work, and I've done this for a long time. I can scale into it. A guy that's never ran a business before, not the guy that goes into 3 different brands and goes, in the next 60 days, I'm going to learn how to do gutters and this and this and this and this. No, this is I don't want to say a big boy play, but a guy that's been in it and can do that. And that's part of what we assess, right? We're not going to blow smoke up your butt and say, oh yeah, you should get 5. We're going to go, hey, where are you at? What does it look like now? What does it look like maybe in 10 years when you're a stronger operator or have a bigger team?
Yeah. So in summary, a great option potentially, but not always the best option. So once again, that's part of our analyzation of that portfolio, making sure we meet you where you're at.